What's up, guys? How's it going? It is Matt here. So today I'm going to be doing a video because I've seen some dumb things done on videos where people get hurt, people don't get hurt, people come close to getting hurt. And I've seen some things in real life too when it comes to firearm safety. We're going to be specifically talking about pistols today that people just ignore, and because they ignore it, some bad things happen. We're going to be talking about how we can prevent these things and the importance of following our safety rules, right? Because it's important to do that. Now, this video is brought to you by Call Beyond Duty Coffee. I'm a big fan of their coffee. Go check them out. There's a link down in the description. It is good. Now, this all started the other day when I watched a video from Armed Self Protection. It is a good channel. He talks a lot. He shows a lot of real world scenarios and whatnot. Security footage and stuff like that of things that happen. These dudes were in a gun shop. And these guns have been cleared prior to this video. These dudes were in a gun shop, and another guy was buying, or this guy's buddy was buying a brand new gun. I don't know what type of gun it was. Hard to tell on the camera. And he was taking a look at the gun, and he couldn't figure out how to take the thing apart. And he's at the counter, and he's kind of messing with it and trying to figure out how to take the thing apart. And his buddy, who is standing right next to them, who's sitting there looking, and there's no one paying attention to these guys. I mean, that's, if you're at a gun shop, you have to be paying attention to everything that's going on. So they could have stopped this before it happened. And his buddy, who's standing right next to him, looks at him like, oh, yeah, you just do this. Let me see it. And he couldn't figure out what to do it. So then he decided to pull out his own gun, which looked like a Glock. And he decided to show his buddy how his gun takes apart, because I guess he just automatically assumed that his Glock came apart the same way his buddy's gun came apart, which they were completely different guns. Anyway, so he pulls his gun out, but obviously this dude doesn't have a whole lot of experience when it comes to guns, because the first thing that he did is he dropped the magazine, which is a rule, number one rule, and then he started messing with his gun. See, this thing's called a chamber. All right, this right here is called the ejection port. This thing's called a chamber. When a magazine's in there, you rack it back and you load it, and a bullet goes into the chamber, which means there would still be a hot round in the chamber ready to shoot. But anyway, so he's trying to show his buddy on a completely different gun than his Glock how to take apart his Glock, because after all, if you take apart the Glock this way, then you got to take apart that gun that way anyway, because it's all the same. And he's sitting there and he couldn't figure out how to take apart his own gun. And one thing that I noticed is he's holding the gun upright like this, and he's put his hand over here, over top of the ejection port, and he's sitting there trying to figure out how to take apart his gun that he just pulled out of his own damn holster in a gun shop, right? And he's sitting there trying to figure out how to take it apart, and then he remembers, oh yeah, this is a Glock, and his muzzle is literally pointed at his buddy. His muzzle is 100% pointed at his buddy. And he's like, oh yeah, this is the Glock. I forgot, you got to pull the trigger first. So he does this, and he pulls the trigger, and boom, muzzle flash, and it hits his buddy right next to him, right in the gut. No. One, know the gun that you have and how to use it. Two, know how to safely take it apart and, unload it, which is kind of important, because I've seen the people do dumb stuff, and I'll talk about that here in a minute when it comes to unloading the gun. And three, remember your safety rules. Number one, treat every gun as if it's loaded, even if it ain't. Two, never point your gun at anything you do not intend to shoot, right? Number three, keep your finger high off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, just like this, not like this, like this. Number four, if it has a safety, keep the gun on safe until you're ready to shoot. And number five, know your target and what is behind it, because bullets have a tendency to go through things. If you follow those simple safety rules, nothing will ever happen, all right? You will be 100% safe. Now, rule number one in a gun shop, guys, never pull a gun out of a holster in a gun shop. Never. Ever, 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 ever. Because one of three things is going to happen to you. One, they're going to see you. They're going to ask you to leave at gunpoint. Okay. Two, they're going to see you and someone's going to get jumpy, and they're going to, instead of asking you to leave, accidentally put a bullet in you. Right. Or three, someone's going to get hurt, because more than likely, if you're pulling a gun out of a holster, it's probably loaded. Right. So never pull a gun out of a holster in a gun shop. So that was that story. Now, when I was in the Marine Corps, I saw the dumbest thing happen right in front of me. The dumbest thing happened to me right in front of me. So this is my Beretta 92X. Basically speaking, the way how you clear a gun is it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple to clear a gun. And I'll show you right here. So this is loaded at the moment, but I'm not going to fully load it here. The magazine's there. Step number one, remove the magazine while the gun's pointed in a safe direction. Step number two, Your gravity is your friend. You usually kind of point this downward is a good way to do that. If you point it upwards, the shell has to fight against gravity and has a tendency, especially if your hand's in the way, to bounce and go back into the chamber. You put it down on the side, you put your thumb here on the slide stop, and then you pull the slide back and you push the slide stop up, and the gravity will help the round that's in the chamber escape. Then when you're done with that, you turn it back down this way and you look. Okay, you look like this, kind of like, you're looking down a periscope. You look into that chamber to make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. And then you look down in the mag well, because for all you know, a round could have bounced and gotten stuck there, because it has happened. You look down the line well, you look down there. You are cleared, so now you're set. Now, another step that we would do overseas is we had these little barrels before we go into building. We had to clear our guns before we got into the barrel. So we would have to remove the magazine, rack it in an M16 in the case that we had. Obviously, remove the magazine, rack the bolt carrier group. Then we have to point it in the barrel, take it off safe, and pull the trigger to make sure it is fully cleared. We had to do that every time. Now, I watched this in front of me, and I didn't even have time to respond, because what the dude did is he simply removed, or what he did, I'll just pull it out let's just pretend there's a magazine in there. The first thing he did, because he was carrying condition 3, which means there's no round in the chamber, is he racked it. This is how he cleared it. He started off by racking it with a magazine in there, and then after he racked it, he removed the magazine. Then he pointed it in the bin, making sure it's clear here. He pointed it in the bin and pulled the trigger, and what do you think happened? Now, when you have a magazine, this one's for real, and you load it in here and you rack it, what did you just do? You put a round in the chamber, right? So this dude racked it, put a round in the chamber, then removed the magazine, put it in the clear bin, and pulled the trigger. Now, remember, standing there in front of me, waiting my turn, and go boom, you're like, dude, you're an idiot, right? Because his gun went off when he's pointing it into a barrel, right? So that's one thing you got to do when it comes to, clearing your gun. Always remove the magazine first. Now, while we're at it, this is a Beretta 92X that's sitting in my hand. So this is a double to single action gun. If you notice here, there is a safety lever. This right here is the hammer. This safety is also a decocker. You put it down, the hammer goes down, makes it go safe. If you don't know how that works, is what you do is you take a look in there, see if I can get it into the camera. You'll see that little part right there, that little, when you push this down, okay, if you see it moves it out of the way, then it drops the hammer right down so nothing happens and no guns go bang, all right? That's how a double action pistol is pretty much designed to be used. This one specifically, when you put it down like this, it now puts it on safe, okay? So the trigger doesn't work, so in order to get it back to work, you have to put it on fire again and the trigger will work. Now, when you have a double action pistol like this, okay, there's a couple things that you got to do. Especially if you're moving around, or say if you're in a fight or something like that and you actually have to pull your gun out and stuff like that. And I've seen this in law enforcement videos and stuff like that too, and I'm just kind of shaking my head with it. Now, first we'll talk about how this thing works. When you fire that first shot, all right, what happens, you're going to pull that trigger, the slide is going to go back, okay? You notice it is now in single action, which means this is a very, very light, crisp, beautiful trigger that's on this right now. So if you're in a fight and you fired off a couple rounds, it is now in single action, and then you have to move to cover. You don't keep it like this and move to cover. You don't keep it like this to move to cover. Because let's just say you trip or whatever, you trip or something like that because adrenaline's pumping and stuff like that. That trigger is so light that just simple touch of it and that thing will go down. What you need to do before you move to cover, you're shooting, before you move to cover is you drop it. Okay, so it's a double action trigger, making sure, especially if it's a Beretta, that you got to put it back up so it shoots. And then you run to cover when it's in double action. And then from cover, when you fire the next shot, then you fire that double action shot again. And then after that, you'll have the single action shot. The same thing goes to my CZ, is if that hammer is cocked, if you have to move to cover for any reason whatsoever, one, obviously take your finger off the trigger, and two, push down the decocker. All right, before you move. Same thing goes with 6 hours, classic 6 hours. You got to push down that decocker and move, because there's a high probability something's going to happen. You're going to trip and fall or something like that, and you're going to negligent discharge on the, in a fight. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is there is the freak accident, which does happen. There is the freak accident that does happen. But once again, this freak accident that I witnessed offhand could have been easily prevented if you followed the simple rule of popping the safety back on the gun. All right, popping the safety back on the gun, like here, 1911. I'll show you real quick. When I pick it up, this is a single action pistol. So it has to have the safety on there. Okay, that's the safety on there, and you don't want to walk around with it like this because this trigger is also light. But basically speaking is I was on a range. This is the Marine Corps. I was on the range. It was a live fire range. And it was a big, long range. It was an exhausting range. I think we had to run like a click in order to get to our firing position and stuff like that. We had mortar fire going on and stuff like that too. And we're all in line getting ready to move. And I got down. I was in cover and I was firing my M16, my M16A2 M203 off. And then I got up and then I laid down again to get in cover. And then I watched my buddy who was next to me, because the way how it works in a situation like that in a range is you have one person moves while the other one is holding down suppressive fire. Then you dive down, and then when you're diving down, you're firing suppressive fire. Then he gets up and moves forward. Okay, that's just called team rushes, what's called buddy rushes. So he had an M249 saw. Okay, an M249 saw. Now, the way how the saw works is it's a different type of action system. Well, it's not really a different action system. You just have to change your battery of arms a little bit. When it is unloaded, you keep it on fire. That's just how it works. When it's unloaded, you keep it on fire, nothing's going to happen. When it is loaded, you have to put it on safe. Okay, that's just how the system works. Don't ask me why they engineered it like that. They just did. All right. But anyway, so we were at this range, and he had a saw, I had a 203, and he was down his bipod. He was unloading his burst fires and stuff like that. And then I got up and I ran, and I dove down and I started taking fire, and then I started firing at the targets. And this is just—it's not an actual firefight; it's just a live fire range. And then I remember laying there in the prone position, and I could see out of the corner of eye he was getting up and moving. But when he did it, I saw a 8 to 10 round burst go right by my head, literally like within inches of my head, just went flying right by the head and hit the ground below me and went out there. I took a look back to see what was going on. He had tripped and he fell. Now, it was a saw. Now, what he should have done, because it was loaded and he was shooting, is when he got up, okay, the first thing that he should have done when he got up was pop that safety back on. This is 1911 safety. It doesn't work like that on a saw. He should have put that safety back on before he moved, right? But he didn't. And what happened is Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law happened. So he tripped, he fell, and I almost got shot because of it. So when it comes to firearms safety, guys, all right, you have to take it seriously. And if you don't know the basic safety rules, treat every gun as if it's loaded. Never point a gun at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your finger straight off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Keep the gun unsafe until it's ready to shoot, and know the target and what is behind it. If you don't know your 5 safety rules, okay, then you need to learn them. Because if you don't follow those simple 5 safety rules, someone's going to end up in the hospital. Or one day you're going to get really embarrassed on the range because you had a negligent discharge because you weren't following those safety rules, and everyone's going to laugh at you, right? So anyway, guys, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about me. And remember, guys, it's our responsibility to take care of each other and protect each other. Peace.